C1, a proclamation in recognition of Kaori Marikawa for donating her time and talents to her community during the COVID-19 pandemic. I had the pleasure of presenting this proclamation in person to Kaori just the other day, and she was very, very grateful to receive this in person. So I'm going to read this into the record. It's a proclamation in recognition of Kaori Marikawa. Whereas on March 11, 2020, Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer declared a state of emergency and issued several orders implementing measures in the state of Michigan that were designed to help prevent the rapid serious illness or death. And whereas on March 23, 2020, Governor Gretchen Whitmer issued Executive Order 2020-21, which temporarily suspended all activities not necessary to sustain or protect life, the Stay Home, Stay Safe order, making life very challenging and different from what everyone had been used to. And whereas during these challenging and uncertain times, our Troy community continues to practice social distancing, and residents have been looking out for one another and rallying around one another during this time of need. And whereas one of Troy's residents, 18-year-old Kaori Marikawa, felt that because of COVID, most of her neighbors who are older adults hadn't been able to see their children and grandchildren like they used to, making everyone very sad and lonely, and the neighborhood very quiet and depressed. And whereas Kaori began playing the violin when she was 6 years old and loved it from the very first note, since school was closed, part of Kaori's daily schedule was to practice violin for 2 hours a day. And with the windows open, neighbors started coming to her family's yard to listen to her music whenever she would practice. Some neighbors suggested she play more often outside or on the lake so they could listen. And one neighbor even offered a boat. And whereas as her mom, Yoko Marikawa, pedaled the boat, Kaori played her own renditions of the Star-Spangled Banner, Scotland the Brave, Amazing Grace, and My Heart Will Go On, as well as classics such as Vivaldi's The Four Seasons, treating her neighbors to their own personal violin concerts. Starting at Pebble Lake, where she lives, Kaori has now expanded her concerts to the other 5 lakes within her subdivision. And whereas Kaori also works very hard in her studies, this year she received the AP Scholar Award for achieving high scores on 5 AP exams. And in 2018, she was an intern at the United Nations headquarters in New York City, working for a foreign diplomat. Kaori hopes to get into Harvard next year. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Troy City Council extends special recognition to Troy resident Kaori Marikawa for dedicating her time, talent, and love of the violin to bring smiles and happiness to her community by playing the violin on the many lakes within the Emerald Lake subdivision. And be it further resolved that the Troy City Council and all of Troy's residents sincerely thank Kaori Marikawa for being a shining example of how to give back to one's community. This proclamation was presented in person a couple days ago and presented into the record today, the 21st day of September 2020.